You are standing at the bottom of a stone shaft beneath the streets of Rome in the year 91 AD. The walls are close enough to touch with both hands. Above you, a circle of daylight is shrinking. Not because the sun is setting, because men are sliding a stone lid into place. This is not a dungeon. No judge sentenced you here for theft or treason. The men closing you in are priests. The charge against you is spiritual, and the law being followed, perfectly, methodically, without a single violation, will leave you here until you are gone. Her name was Cornelia. She was the Virgo Vestalis Maxima, the chief Vestal Virgin, the highest-ranking sacred woman in the Roman world. She had tended the eternal flame of Rome for over 30 years. She had never been accused of anything, and the emperor who ordered her sealed underground had, according to people who were there, once tried to make her his. She had refused him. The rope that lowered her into the chamber is already being coiled above. The lamp on the wooden cot beside her, small, clay, burning, is not a mercy. She knows what it is. It is Rome's way of saying, "We are not killing you. The darkness is." The stone lid finds its place. The light becomes a sliver, then nothing. Only the flame, above her, whilst footsteps walk away. This is the Campus Celeratus, the field of wickedness, a site so documented, so precisely recorded by the Romans themselves, that we know exactly what was placed inside that chamber. A small bed, an oil lamp, bread, water and milk. The minimum necessary to ensure that no Roman hand could be said to have caused her death. The law had been followed. That was the entire point. Rome, 91 AD. The Emperor Domitian is 11 years into his reign, a reign that ancient chroniclers describe with one consistent word: fear. He is the son of Vespasian, brother of Titus, and by this point in his rule, the Senate has learned to applaud when he enters a room and think nothing when people disappear. The woman now sealed beneath the city's northern edge was not a political dissident. She was not a military rival. That she was the most sacred female figure in the Roman state, a woman whose legal authority allowed her to pardon condemned men with a single touch, whose testimony in court carried weight that most men's did not, whose person was, by every law Rome had ever written, absolutely inviolable. Every law except one. Here is what contemporary sources confirm, and what historians have spent centuries carefully stepping around. Domitian did not simply enforce an ancient religious code, he selected his targets. He personally interrogated the accused, and he held every office required to investigate, prosecute, convict and sentence simultaneously. There was no separation, there was no appeal, there was only him. The question that will haunt the next 20 minutes is not whether this was legal, it was. The question is how a civilization builds a law to protect its holiest women, and then watches, in complete silence, as that law is turned into a trap, precisely because of how holy they were. If you want to keep pulling back the marble from the history they taught you to admire, subscribe and stay with us. But first, and before we go any further into the machine that made this possible, you need to understand what these women actually were, because the power Cornelia held the morning before her descent makes what happened to her considerably worse. The Vestal Virgins were not simply religious figures, they were a state institution with legal powers that most Roman citizens, male or female, would never come close to holding. A Vestal could walk through the city, and if she encountered a man being led to his execution, her presence alone was sufficient to free him. Not a petition, not a pardon request, her physical proximity. That was law. She held full legal independence in a society where women were, in virtually every other context, the property of their fathers, then their husbands. She could own land. She could write a will. Senators made way for her in the street. And her body, this is critical, was considered the sacred property of Rome itself. Her chastity was not personal virtue, it was a civic contract. Roman theology held that as long as the Vestals kept their vows, the city would stand. Their purity was the city's survival, which sounds like reverence, until you understand what it actually created. It created the charge of incestum, not what that word implies in modern usage. In Roman religious law, incestum meant ritual pollution, a contamination of the sacred compact between Rome and its gods, and the definition of what constituted that pollution was controlled entirely by the College of Pontiffs. No jury of citizens, no adversarial legal process, no right of appeal to any court outside the college itself. And who presided over the College of Pontiffs? The Pontifex Maximus. In 91 AD, that office was held by Domitian. He was, in the same proceeding, the accuser, the presiding authority, and the only avenue of appeal. Contemporary legal scholars within Rome, men who understood exactly what this structure meant, said nothing publicly while he lived. So the architecture of the trap was elegant, precisely because every element of it was legitimate. The Campus Celeratus itself was chosen for a reason that tells you everything about how Rome thought. The law prohibited the shedding of vestal blood. They were too sacred to execute by human hand, so Rome did not execute them. It provided them with a chamber, a lamp, provisions enough for days, and a stone lid. What happened after that was between the condemned woman and the gods. Rome's hands were clean. This legal fiction had existed for centuries. Domitian did not invent it. He simply understood how to use it. He had already used it 3 times before Cornelia. She tends the flame the way she has every morning for 30 years. Her hands know this work, the way a carpenter's hands know the grain of wood, without thought, without hesitation. The corridor of the temple is cool even in summer. The other Vestals move around her, but there is something wrong with the air this morning. They are not looking at her. She notices this, the way you notice a sound that stops. Absence. The junior Vestals, who have always deferred to her, are performing a very careful, very Roman kind of invisibility, present in the body, erased in the eyes. She has seen this before. She has watched it happen to others. 3 of her predecessors in this role were accused in the mid-80s, the sisters Oculata and a woman named Varonella. Suetonius names them. They were accused simultaneously, tried before the college, and allowed, in what Domitian apparently considered leniency, to choose their own ends. Their names vanished from official records within weeks. Rome moved on. He had watched how the city responded to that. It had responded with silence. And silence, to a man like Domitian, was permission. The proceedings of the College of Pontiffs were not public. They were not required to be. When an accusation of incestum was brought, the college convened in closed session. No gallery, no forum crowd, no record made available to the wider senatorial class until after the verdict had been rendered and the sentence already set in motion. What we know about how these trials operated comes primarily from 2 sources who wrote after Domitian's death, when it had become safe to write honestly. Suetonius, compiling his accounts of the emperors, notes the procedural facts without flinching. Pliny the Younger, writing to a friend in a private letter that was never intended as formal history, describes what he witnessed with something closer to barely contained fury. Both sources confirm the same structural reality. Witnesses could be called, but the accused Vestal had no formal right to cross-examine them. She had no right to compel witnesses of her own on equal legal footing. And the charge itself, ritual pollution, was defined so broadly that the college retained complete discretion over what counted as evidence. The concept of incestum could absorb almost any behaviour, any association, any rumour that the presiding authority chose to classify as spiritually compromising. Domitian did not preside at a remove. According to Pliny, he conducted the interrogations personally, not through deputies, not through appointed prosecutors. Himself. Face to face with women who had no legal mechanism to challenge the man questioning them, because that man was simultaneously the only authority who could rule on their answers. One case documents the disparity with particular clarity. A senator named Valerius Licinianus was named as the alleged lover of one of the accused Vestals. He was exiled. He lost his property, his standing, his career, and then, eventually, he returned to Rome. He taught rhetoric. He rebuilt something resembling a life. The woman he was accused of being with did not return from anywhere. The legal calculus was not accidental. A Vestal's violation of her vow was categorically graver than a Roman man's participation in the same act, because her body was not her own. It belonged to Rome. A senator could violate the sacred compact and lose his rank. A Vestal who violated it had damaged the city's covenant with the gods themselves. She could not own her innocence. She had never been permitted to own herself. But there is something that the legal record does not explain, something that Pliny implies and Suetonius circles without quite landing on. Why Cornelia specifically? Why, after 3 accusations in the mid-80s, did Domitian wait and then escalate dramatically to the Virgo Vestalis Maxima herself, the most protected woman in Rome, the one whose condemnation would require the most elaborate justification and carry the most severe consequence? To understand that, you have to go back further, to a room nothing like the stone chamber beneath the city, a room that was well lit, ornamented, warm, a room in the imperial palace where Cornelia was still, unambiguously, the most powerful woman in Rome. Suetonius records, with the particular flatness of a man noting something everyone already knew, that Domitian did not maintain a purely administrative relationship with the institution of the Vestals. He referred to certain encounters, obliquely in the language men of his class used when they wished to be understood without being quoted, as bed wrestling. The phrase survived because he said it more than once. Cornelia would have been the most visible, the most symbolically powerful. A refusal from her was not a personal matter. In the logic of Domitian's court, it was a declaration. Part 6. She returns to the temple. She tends the flame. The lamp